Given your expertise, I would be interested in your opinion on how kleptocracy corruption could be weaponized, because we're always speaking about social media being weaponized, but we're not that much focusing on the field of money flows, of corruption and kleptocracy. What is your opinion on this one?
Yeah, I think it's a really important topic for us to think about, because when we look at the tactics that authoritarian regimes like Russia and China and others are using in order to undermine democracies in other countries, we see a range of tactics that they're using, and they actually use these tactics together in combination. So social media, cyber attacks, what I call malign financial influence, but it's, kleptocracy, corruption is a part of that. It's also other forms of strategic economic coercion, using things like, energy deals and other things in order to gain influence, and subversion of political and social groups. I see this as one toolkit, and I think from a national security and foreign policy perspective, it's important that we understand not only each element of that toolkit, but how they all fit together.
Given these facts, what would, from your opinion, be an appropriate response from the policy side?
Well, I think it's really important to understand, you mentioned social media earlier, and I think in the social media context, we often talk about how, authoritarian regimes are using Western created technologies and the information space in order to exploit them to attack our democracies. And I think it's similar on the financial space. We see Moscow and others basically taking advantage of Western financial institutions and sort of non-transparent financial practices in order to undermine and attack our democracies as well. And so I think there's a huge responsibility for governments like the United States, where there are a number of measures, in particular the ability to form shell companies, company formation that is non-transparent, as well as a number of elements of particular industries like the real estate industry that allow for sort of dark money to come in and be laundered through, that both can then be sort of targeted at other countries. So I think it's important to understand this is a transnational problem.
Speaking about the US, and you mentioned the real estate sector and the possibility to form shell companies very easily. There's this famous example of you only needing a library card in some US states to form a company. But this is not new. This is something that the public should know at least since tens of years. So why was there no significant change so far in the US?
Well, it's a really good question, and I'm not sure I sort of have the full answer. I think some of it is that in the US context, a lot of times this issue has been seen as a more technical one. I think the financial space is often difficult for people, somebody like me with a foreign policy, national security background, it's not the kind of thing that we normally think about. And usually it's left to the more technical elements of policy making. And so I think one of the reasons that we haven't seen much movement is that it hasn't been understood as an issue of strategic importance, an area where it really has a direct effect on not only foreign policy, but on US national security interests and the national security interests of our allies. And so for me, a lot of the importance is actually making that connection for folks, underscoring that this isn't just about sort of a technical financial challenge that has implications for the economy. This is a strategic challenge that has implications for US national security. And I think that's a big part of it.